than 6 decades, the Munich Security Conference has been host to the largest security policy conversations in the world. This year, of course, is no exception. And to mark the 60th anniversary, America House, a cultural center right here in Munich, is hosting an exhibit featuring the biggest moments from those decades. We are about to get a private tour, so come along. Benedikt Franke, first of all, congratulations on the 60th anniversary, the conference that's about to get underway. And I learned a German word this week, Zeitenwende, turning point. It seems to me that the history of the conference is about turning points, right?
It has been. I mean, we've had so many turning points over the last 60 years. Just think of the end of the Cold War, think of the first military missions of Germany when we talk about the wars in former Yugoslavia, talk about 9/11. I mean, there have been more turning points than non-turning points in the last 60 years.
Henry Kissinger, obviously a famous, dare I say, infamous figure in foreign policy globally. He died recently, of course, at the age of 100. He was a founding member of this conference, wasn't he?
So he and Ewald von Kleist, who you can see on the picture, they came up with the idea together. He was a professor at Harvard at the time. He joined every single conference until the last 2. So he's been to well over 50 Munich Security Conferences. So this was my very first Munich Security Conference.
Wow.
I was a little intern in the Ministry of Defense, and I stood in the main hall, and I was always run over by the delegation of Putin. And I couldn't imagine that I would be back at that conference later, or even running it 15 years later. But the moment was actually quite amazing, because that is the speech where Putin outlined many of the things that he has done since 2007. He has been very open about his intention. He's been very open about how he felt, disenfranchised, pushed into a corner, not taken seriously. And for us at the Munich Security Conference, and I think for historians around the world, the question must be, why did we not hear it? Why didn't we, see what he meant? Did we not want to see it?
Then you see this iconic moment that looks so hopeful. Hillary Clinton and Sergei Lavrov together in what was meant to be a reset.
It felt like a reset. I was in the room and it felt amazing. They had a closed-door meeting just before. Apparently some hard questions were asked, some hard answers were given, but both of them seemed convinced that they could resolve their differences. 2.5 years later, Russia invaded Crimea.
One of the more dramatic moments, 2018, this one involved a prop. Bibi Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, showed up with a piece of this. What is this?
So this is part of what they say is an Iranian drone that was shot down just before the conference. We had a special podium built for him in which he could hide this piece. And it was particularly dramatic because the Iranian foreign minister was sitting in the second row right in front of him. Prime Minister Netanyahu went on stage, pulled it out of its case under the podium, held it up and said,
Mr. Zarif, do you recognize this? You should. It's yours.
Then he put it back and then he did his speech. And obviously that quote and that picture, that photo, made it onto virtually every newspaper front page.
So this wall, Benedikt, really for me tells the story of the most recent years of the conference, so much of which have been about the war in Ukraine. But your risk report this year indicates that the fear factor has dialed down in many countries, including many European countries. Are you concerned that support, particularly among NATO nations, for Ukraine is beginning to wane?
Yes, we're massively concerned, and we see it already. However, I think President Trump's recent remarks have in a way changed sentiment, at least in Germany, and maybe that was intended. But there seems to be an increasing willingness to continue supporting Ukraine, even if the US were to reduce or even stop its support. And that is encouraging. Obviously, that happened well after our Munich Security Report 2024 did the polling, but I find that as the background to this year's Munich Security Conference very encouraging, that there are increasing parts of the population that are willing to go it alone.
That said, Benedikt, I got to stop you because there's an elephant in the room. And here it is, an actual elephant right in the middle of the room here at America House. What is the meaning of this?
It has become a metaphor for things that are actually quite easy to see, but quite often don't make it into discussions, for fear of escalation, for fear of making things worse, for fear of embarrassment. We are all about the elephant in the room. We want to make sure that it is at the core of every single debate that we have.
Benedikt, is the elephant in the room in 2024 Donald Trump?
I think it's one of a couple of elephants. It seems to be a herd by now. We obviously have the situation in Ukraine. We obviously have the situation in Gaza. We obviously have Donald Trump. But we have a lot of other elephants, and we try to address them all.
This is a transatlantic conference, essentially, initially when it was founded. The Global South is playing an increasingly large role geopolitically around the world. And to what extent is that changing how you approach the creation of the conference and what the focus should be?
It has taken us a long, long time, almost 50 years, to wake up to the need to include the Global South more prominently, or at all. This year will be the most diverse Munich Security Conference in our 60-year history, and we've put particular emphasis on countries that have never been to Munich. We will have Guatemala there for the first time, Fiji, Vanuatu, Palau, countries that at first look don't really have a role in transatlantic security, our core theme. But when we look at what currently threatens transatlantic security most, it's an increasingly fragmented global order. More than half of the world's states not signing up to our Western narrative anymore. We need to acknowledge that. And what has changed is that these countries in the Global South are no longer insignificant. They have grown economically. They have done a lot of catching up in the last couple of years. They have alternative offers. They have offers from Russia. They have offers from China. They have offers from others. And we need to get better at promoting, selling, explaining our narrative and redeveloping the global rules-based order in a way that makes more of these countries committed stakeholders. And so a lot of the conference will be about this very difficult and I'm sure very uncomfortable debate.
Benedikt Franke, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.